Okay, here we go. Well, good afternoon, good evening. We're here at webinar number 5 already. Just to go through a little bit about the main contents and the activity set for this phase number 3. Yes. Before that, Katia, I don't know if you've had any problems in relation to previous activities. As far as I'm concerned, I think you have everything submitted, so probably there are no doubts in relation to that. But any comments or anything to say in relation to phase 1 or 2? Katia?
No comments. For me, all is clear. And,
okay. Activity number 4 you made, it was excellent. Very good, well done. So really good job. So let's go into this phase number 3, which as I told you at the kickoff webinar, probably it's one of the I don't know if I should say more interesting, but it's a topic related to human resources, which I believe it can add a lot of value to in terms of managing a sports facility. Yeah. So basically the module is organized in different contents, but especially 2 different groups of slides of 2 PowerPoints, 2 files of PowerPoint that you'll have them already available, and also only one activity, an individual activity for this phase number 3, which is, as I said again at the beginning of the module, the kickoff webinar, probably the highest in level of intensity, the highest workload. You'll find it in this activity, but there's only one activity for the whole 2 weeks, so probably it should be okay for you. For all the rest, not you, Katia, that are a little bit behind in relation to submitting the activities, as I always say, that's no problem. I understand that all of you have a lot of you make a big effort working and attending to this module at the same time, and also on the top of that, there's also a holidays period for most of the people, so no problem in submitting activities late, but just make sure that that you don't have all the activities all together, because then probably you will submit them, but you won't go through the learning process in an ideal way. Yeah. So so at least make sure you know what you have to do in each one of the activities to make sure you can keep on in relation to that. Yeah.
If you will permit me, Jordi,
sure.
just one thing, because we have received several petitions from some students that have been either working and they were already telling us, or they were traveling because of work, that they will need few more weeks. So it's like you said, they're free to do it, because obviously once the course will be over, there is still like extra 4 weeks of recovery period for all of them. So it's like, just count with it, guys, and don't stress yourself, because like Jordi said, the learning process is more important than submitting the activity sometimes. So it's like it's better to work on it with proper time and get the evaluation maybe in September than just submit it for the sake of submitting it. So if you just starting with the course right now, like some of you will be starting in the upcoming days, no worries, take your time, work on it, and it will be okay.
And yeah, completely agree, Lucas. And as I say always, if you have any doubts in relation to activity before thinking, well, I believe that means that, and I go through, it is good sometimes to just send me an email or contact me and or Lucas, but maybe me in terms of the content of the activities to try to answer them and to make sure you don't waste time or spend time in something that probably with a very brief email or call it would have been much easier. Yeah. Okay. So let's go through the activity, the contents, the main contents of this module. You have it on the slides, but I believe that it will be interesting just for me to give you a 20 minutes, 25 minutes explanation of the central part of the contents, just to make sure that it is easy to understand. So I'm going to share a screen with you. Now you should be seeing my screen.
Yes, correctly.
Okay. And here, as I say, if you had not time yet to go through the contents of this phase 3, this is the second file of PowerPoint file, where you will find this basically this structure or this general scheme that is the one that I'm gonna try to explain you in these coming minutes. Yeah, the first thing it is that this structure or this scheme, it is not something that you may find, I think, in any book or any article, because that's something that I was taught by the human resources director of Danone. And well, probably you might know that Danone is always one of the top multinational companies, always top rated in terms of managing people and human climate, human resources climate, and so on. So really it is interesting to see how they at Danone manage their workforce, just to make sure that they get the best of them. Yeah. So what they basically do, it is first of all, they organize the scheme in three main blocks. A first block, which would be the green area, which would be the strategy of the organization. A second block, which is probably the central block, it is the blue part, which is the analysis part, job positions and personnel. We're going to go through that now. And finally, the kind of the red one, which is the operational management, it would be the third main block. Yeah. The first reasoning here, the first thing to think, it is that if we look at all these elements in this scheme, and we think what it always finally happens in any company, probably you would see that, or you would end up thinking that obviously this red part, this red block, where there is a remuneration, where there is this process of recruiting, selection and incorporation, career development, and so on, all these elements, usually, whether it is formal or an informal way, it happens always in any company. Yeah, obviously the part of remuneration, the salaries and wages, I would think that everywhere it happens, because if not, it's not very fair to work in a company that doesn't pay you. Yeah, so basically that happens anywhere and in any company. But if we look at the scheme, this is step number 9 of 8 previous steps that should take place in any organization, and that usually doesn't happen. Yeah, so the first reasoning behind that, it is that this strategic management scheme, it is important to take into account that to end up to this operational management, which are the visible and feasible and tangible elements that happen in any organization, that should be an outcome of previous steps that should take place before. Yeah. You will see at the PowerPoint, at the document, that there is a lot of explanation. Obviously, I will not go through it because it's some part of them they are quite straightforward, and I'd rather you to go through. And if you have any questions, just contact me. But let me explain the central part of this document. Yeah, the first thing it is, we have to take into account the strategy of the organization. Yeah, so any organization, and especially the sports organizations, which are the ones that it's been adapted for sports organizations, the environment is very important. Obviously, it's completely different if we're talking about a professional sports club, that we're talking about a health and fitness center, or we are thinking about an amateur sports club or sports association. Yeah, so the environment, it is very important to take into account in relation to the strategy of the people. Yeah, mainly here, it is important to learn if we are working in a sector that there's a lot of volunteers as well as paid people, or not. We are working in an environment within the sports industry that it's basically professionalized. Yes, so obviously that human resources scheme applies only to paid people. Right? We're talking about professionals here, not for volunteers, which it's probably a different way of managing people and teams. Yeah. So after we think and we have some thoughts in relation to the environment we're working in, we'll go to the structure and culture of the organization. Actually, this structure, this organizational structure, is quite detailed in the previous PowerPoint, in the previous file, where you will find an explanation of what we understand by organizational structure, which is the difference between the organizational chart and the organizational structure, and so on. Yeah, so we'll find information over there, but I understand that that's something that everybody at least knows what it is meant for, and also the culture, the values, the attitudes that the organization has towards its clients, its personnel, its suppliers, and so on. Yeah, all this ends up in this first part, in this segmentation in a specific remuneration bands or levels. Yeah, that's very important. What it means that it is that any organization should have several remuneration bands where all people in that remuneration band or remuneration level, they are getting paid the same amount of money with only a difference of not over 15%. Yeah, don't ask me why it's 15%. That's something said by workforce psychology, personal psychology, that they have established, thanks to their analysis and studies, that this should be a remuneration band or a remuneration level according to or well perceived by employees. Yeah, so this means that if myself and Lucas were working as spinning instructors in a health and fitness, and Lucas is earning 10% more than me, okay, I will think that, well, maybe Lucas has a better academic profile, maybe he has more experience, maybe he's I don't know, he's more handsome than me, so no problem. Yeah, so this will be an element that I would consider fair, even though I'm earning 10% less than Lucas. But if this difference was not 10% and it was 35%, that would be probably perceived as unfair by me. Why? Because I'm doing exactly the same job as Lucas is doing. I'm teaching some spinning classes, and he's earning much more money than me. Yeah, so that's not fair. And if I have the same tasks and the same level of responsibility, obviously I should be earning more or less the same amount of money. As I say, as a maximum difference of 15%. Yeah, that's something explained a little bit better at the notes. Yes. If you think these remuneration bands or remuneration levels, it's something that it's easy to see at a professional level in any I don't know, football club. Yeah, I don't know, if we think about Barca, we know that for instance Messi, probably his remuneration band by himself, and he's the person in the club that is earning more money, probably all over the world. Yeah, so he's the top paid player, and he's over there. But then we have a second layer where probably Luis Suarez or Busquets or some other players are in this second band, and all these players are earning some wages which are I don't know if it's 15%, probably it's a little bit more, but we're talking about a very hyper professionalized sector, which is the football sports clubs. But they are in a second level, and then we will go through a third level or a fourth level or even a fifth level. Yeah, obviously that in football, in Barcelona Football Club, it is done just to manage personal egos and the professional players themselves. And as you can imagine, the last level, remuneration level, they don't have any problems to end up at the end of the month. Yeah, so they have no problems, economical problems. Yeah, so it's another reason they did that. But the structure is the same. Yeah, when we go into any other industry where there are salaries, average salaries, it is important to make sure that we have these remuneration levels in a way that anyone that is entering at the organization, he or she will know which level is he or she, and therefore the expectations of their salary are going to be set. Yeah. Okay, that would be the first part, and then we go to the central part, which is the analysis part, and it's the one that I'm going to explain a little bit more in detail. Although, as I said, it is, I understand, quite well explained in the document. Yeah, we're talking about job positions and about persons. Yes, and the first thought, and probably the most important one, it is to completely separate job positions from persons. Yes, so when we analyze job positions, we completely forget about who's occupying that job position. Yeah, whether it is Maria, Mary, or John, or Lucas, or Jordi, or whoever, we forget about who's occupying that job position, and we analyze strictly the job position. Yeah, I always say that we separate seats from faces. Yeah, chairs from faces. Yeah, I'm going to analyze the chairs. I'm going to analyze these job positions, and to do that, what I'm going to do is it's a two-step process. The first thing I'm going to do is develop a job description. Yeah, this job description it will state what I'm doing, why I'm doing that, and how I'm doing that. Yeah, so what I'm doing, why, and how. Yeah, and these job descriptions, the description of job position, sorry, are stated and usually it's something that should be done every 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and at the same time we do the definition of the job position. The definition of the job position, it is what this job position should be done in terms of the tasks of this job position. Yeah, so okay, this job position right now is doing these tasks, but ideally, or at the initial moment when we thought about this job position, it was expected to be done this, and this. Yeah, so the definition would be the ideal job position. Yeah, from this current picture, for this picture that we take with this description of the job position, we move towards the future, and we analyze, or we assess. Well, first of all, we assess the current job position. Yeah, and then we analyze or we assess the future of this job position. So, for instance, let's say that I have a fitness instructor, a fitness coordinator in a health and fitness center. Yeah, and in my strategy, yeah, at the green part, the strategy of my organization is thinking that I want to increase the weight of income in terms of personal training. Yeah, so now personal training accounts for, I don't know, 0.5% of total income in my club. And I want that this personal training in 3 years, it becomes 5% of total income of my club. Yeah, so I'm going to put a lot of effort in promoting and commercializing personal training in my club. Yeah, okay, I have the strategy. Now I have to think which is the job position that is going to develop all these tasks. Yeah, and I have kind of two ways of developing that. I could go to the fitness coordinator and tell him or tell her that he's going to be in charge of developing this personal training strategy in my club. Yeah, so I know that this job position, fitness instructor, as a future assessment, it's going to have a lot of value in the future because he's going to have a lot of responsibility in terms of promoting this personal training. Or I may decide another option, which is, okay, fitness instruction is going to keep doing the same things, and I'm going to create a new job position, which is the coordinator of or the manager of personal trainers. And this is going to be the person that is going to coordinate and manage all the offer in terms of personal training. Yeah, that would be another possibility. Obviously, there's no good or bad possibilities. It will depend on the strategy and on the organization. Yes, but me as a manager, I know that I have these two possibilities. Yes, the last thing I should do, it is decide if it's the first or the second strategy, depending on the person that is occupying the position of job of fitness coordinator, fitness manager. Yeah, so sometimes what we tend to do is, if Peter is occupying this position, he's not really prepared to develop, or he's not really commercial person, so I'm going to look for another person that is going to go through this personal training effort. Yeah, that should never be done like that. Yeah, although we do it sometimes, or most of the times, we should separate completely persons from job positions, and therefore, first of all, think in thinking on the best for the organization, which would be the best strategy. So as I said, fitness manager developing personal training, or creating a new job position, which would be the personal trainer managers. Yeah. Again, and as I said, this fitness manager with these competencies or responsibilities in personal training means that this future job position assessment will tell us that this position is going to have a lot of importance and a lot of value. It's going to add a lot of value to the organization in the future. Maybe not that much today, but yes, in 2 or 3 years' time. Yeah. When we have done that for job positions, we do a very similar process for personnel. Yeah. So here we forget about job positions completely. We forget about the chairs, and we go into people. Yeah. and we analyze Peter, Mary, Lucas, John, whoever. Yeah, and these persons that they are working in my organization, I go through the same process. Yeah, the first thing it is, I analyze the theoretical profile of this person and the real profile, sorry, that I have in my organization. Yeah, to analyze a profile of a person, we always look at basically three main things: his curriculum in terms of studies, his experience or her experience, and also his or her attitudes towards work. Yeah, so these are the three main blocks that we should analyze when we analyze a person in a working environment. Yeah, so once we have done this analysis for the person, we move on a step number 7. We move on to make a performance assessment, first in relation to the current job position, and then number 8, an analysis of the potential in relation to the future assessment of the job position. Yeah. So here what I do it is analyze this person in relation to what is doing now and which is his or her potential in the future, in the 2-3 years coming time. Yeah. So this will be the process for job positions and then for personnel that we should go through in any sports organization. Yes. Obviously, when we go through this analysis in terms of current assessment and future assessment, I move on a little bit. We end up in a matrix, what we call the POSC matrix, POSC matrix, whether it is for job positions or for persons. Yes. So the logic behind it is exactly the same. For job positions, we analyze or we put in this matrix all the job positions we have in our organization. In the vertical axis, we have the current value, and in the horizontal axis, we have the future value. Yeah. So in this context, we will have potential job positions, star job positions, consolidated job positions, or obsolete job positions. Yes. So, for instance, if this fitness manager is in 2-3 years' time not gonna have any sort of responsibility in terms of personal training, probably he would be or she would be a consolidated job position. Yeah, that would be a consolidated job position. Whereas if we are thinking in giving a lot of responsibility to this fitness manager position because he's gonna take charge of all the personal training workload, probably this job position is gonna move from consolidated towards a star in the future. Yeah. So these are things that us as a managers, as a CEO of a company, we have to first of all we have to be aware. Secondly, we have to plan it, and thirdly, we have to manage this plan. Yeah. So it is not the sector or the environment or the people working in our organization that decides which is the best strategy, but it is us in our projects. That's one of the few things that a manager can do locked in his office. It is us that we have to decide which is the best strategy for our organization. Yeah. So this job position, basically, we are going to decide how it's going to move in the coming 2-3 years, whether if it's going to stay on the same box we have it now, or is it going to move from one box to another. Yeah. So that's something we can plan and we have to manage as managers, as I say. And then we have the matrix for persons, which is behind the same logic. Yeah, we have a vertical axis of current productivity, and on the horizontal axis, the potential of future of performance. And again, we have potential, stars, consolidating as obsolete. Yeah, and that's something that we can plan. We can imagine what is going to happen as managers, but we cannot manage. Yeah, because obviously any person has their own life and their own evolution. Yeah, so we can estimate or we can expect what can happen, but always we can be okay, or we can we can have a mistake in our thoughts. Yes. So here, what it means, it is that we are going to have potential persons, star persons, consolidated, and obsolete persons. Yes, according to this matrix. Yes. Obviously, you may imagine here, which is going to be the last stage of this reasoning process, which is if we have a matrix for job positions and we have a matrix for persons, obviously we will be thinking that if we have a job position that it's on a star, the best person the best profile person to have it in this job position would be a star person. Yeah. So at the end of the day, at the end of these stages, what we do is we mix job positions and persons. Yes. And we end up with this post matrix fusion, where we identify job positions on the vertical axis, where again we see potential, stars, consolidated, and obsolete, and also for persons, again, potential, stars, consolidated, and obsolete. Yeah. And this matrix fusion, what it tells us, it is that if we have a star job position, that can only be occupied by a person who's also classified as a star. Yeah. If we have a job position that is a potential job position, we may have a person potential, or we may have a person consolidated. Yeah. On the same time that if we have a consolidated job position, we may have a potential or consolidated person. Yes. So what this means, it is that at the end of the day, when we make the fusion of these both matrix, we can end up making a map of our organization where we can find how are our job positions established and which are the persons occupying these job positions. And obviously, the ideal would be to have all people aligned in these two axes. Yeah, that's the ideal. That's the paper. Obviously, at the end of the day, the real situation is not like that. Yeah. So our role as a managers, it is to make sure that we try to keep positions and persons aligned as much as possible in this axis. Yeah. One thing important here that it is interesting to think, it is that when we think about persons, there is not, it can be, but there is not all at all. That means a life cycle. Yeah, this is not okay. When we are 20, 25 years old, we are potentials. When we are 30, 35, we are stars. When we are 45, 50, we are consolidated. And then after 50, 55, we are obsolete persons. No, this can happen, but this is not, as you will see in the notes when you go through it, this can happen, but this is not always like this at all. Yeah, so I have met obsolete persons at 30, 35 years old. Yeah, why? Because there are motivational obsolete persons, there are competent obsolete persons, and so on. Yeah, so we got to take into account that persons, obviously they can change, and it's difficult sometimes to expect which are going to be their evolution throughout our company. Yeah. So this would be the final process in this. I go back again. In this blue part, this blue block, which would be the analysis of job positions and the personal analysis. Yes. After that, we have the operational management, where it's quite straightforward, and I'm not going to go through that in detail because you have it at the notes, and you'll see that it's I believe that quite well explained, all the processes we follow and at the flow, compensation, knowledge, and professional relations. Yeah. So this operational management, as I said at the beginning, it's something that usually, whether it is formal or informal in any organization, that happens. But that's a step number 9, and we should take into account the previous steps of this process. Yeah. So now I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. So I don't know if Katirao, it was pretty clear to you. Let's say the explanation or the logical behind this process of analysis.
Thank you, Jordi. I read it all the material before the webinar, and it's pretty clear, but I don't have so much experience in human resources, and maybe I will, when I will have some question, I will send mail.
Definitely. As you know, you can always do that.
For general, all is clear.
Great. That is the objective of these notes. That usually when we go through financial aspects, if 2 + 2 adds 5, we have a problem. We know we have a problem. We'll see what happens. Yeah, because 2 + 2 is always 4, not 5. Yeah, but when we talk about human resources, this is much more soft material. So sometimes everything looks good or everything looks bad, depending on the way we look at it. Yeah, so it is important to give to put a lot of science in it to make sure that we have a methodology, and at least we feel comfortable in working with people on the same way. Yeah, because I always put the example, if we are managing a fitness center, a health center, and we have a problem with a bicycle, we just take this bicycle and put it in somewhere and waiting for the maintenance to repair it, and that's it. If we have a person that is not working well, we cannot put it aside for a while just to wait until this person is okay again. Yeah, so we have to manage people, we manage their expectations, and we have to be really honest with each one of them, because if you make a decision A with one, and then in the same situation you take B with another one, you're going to have a problem of credibility and a sense of justice and honesty. It's very, very important. Yeah. So after seeing that, just to finalize that, let me go through. Let me go through. Just a minute. I'm going to share the screen again, and let me go through the activity that is due in this phase. Probably you're seeing my screen again.
Yes.
Yes, and here you see assignment 5, to analyze a team working in a sports facility. What I'm asking here, what I'm asking it is, you should pick a sports facility, no matter which one you choose, if it's from the professional sport or if it's from health and fitness, community sport area, whichever sports facility, and this sports facility should be real. So it should be, as long as it is possible, a sports facility that you are familiar with and you have kind of access to. Yeah, and once you have this sports facility, you have to analyze its organizational structure, and then go through 3 specific job positions, and through this methodology that we have just explained, go through the job position description and assessment, and then go through the personal profile and a potential evolution. Yeah, so this is very interesting to do it based on a real case situation. Yeah, obviously if you have access to a sports facility, maybe the gym that you go to practice sport at your leisure time, you have some part of the information, but you don't have all of it. Maybe you can just imagine part of it. Yeah, but it is very interesting to use a real sports facility, because this way it's easier to put in the shoes on the persons or on the job positions. Yes. Sometimes when I've gone through this exercise, some people has told me, okay, I'm going to do it with the organization that I've even working at. I say, okay, no problem. But this is very confidential. I have problems of confidentiality, because usually I'm going to give some opinion of my boss and so on. So you can do it of your own organization. Just you can be sure that this information that you send me, it's not going to go through anywhere else. It's completely confidential. And even though that, if you want to change the names or the name of the organization, I have no problem at all. Yeah. So the idea here would be probably to go through the activity. It is good also to go through the rubric to see what it is expected. So here, I don't know, for instance, no one is obviously submitted, but we will find the rubric here. And what you can see here, it is the first 2 things that they are requested is, well, first of all, an initial introduction of the facility, just to learn if we are talking about a health and fitness center, or we're talking about a professional sports club, or we're talking about, I don't know, an event company or whatever. Then or analyze the organizational structure. Yeah, and so the organizational structure presentation, that would be the chart. And then some sort of analysis of this organizational structure. So some inputs from your point of view of if this organization is well organized or not in terms of the organizational chart. And then we go through the points we have just said now. Yeah, the job description, current and future assessment of the job positions, and then theoretical profile of the person and personal performance assessment of these persons. Yeah, ending up with the post matrix. And finally, I always set a few points just to analyze the global coherence of the whole activity. Yeah, So this activity is basically what I have been explaining now, plus these initial elements which are at the nodes at the beginning, at the previous file, where you will find the details on that. Yeah. So again, as I said, here you have the explanation on what needs to be done. Yeah. So looking at the nodes, you identify 3 job positions, and obviously the 3 persons that occupy those job positions, and you analyze in terms of job position what they are doing, why they are doing that, and how they are doing. In terms of the persons, which is the personal profile of the person, in terms of personal, academics, experience, and attitudes, and then go through this matrix, the post matrix tool. Yeah. So this would be the idea of this activity. When we go into the real world and we analyze a real sports facility, obviously that takes a little bit more of time. That's why it's the only activity in this module, in this phase. And also it's an individual activity, so you don't depend on anyone else, because obviously each one of you will choose a specific sports facility. And if any of you, Katira, or anyone who's listening the webinar afterwards, if any of you have problems in identifying a sports facility, we can always end up in, I don't know, in a sports facility or sports organization that is very mediatic, and therefore there's a lot of information at the web, or maybe even one of the case studies that we have gone through before, for instance, the WAR case study. But it would be good if you could end up identifying a real sports facility. And even though if you don't have the 100% of the information needed, if you have a good part of it, that would be good to go through it. Yeah. So this would be activity number 5 of phase 3. And again, when you start going through, if you have any questions, just contact me and I will try to answer them. Yeah. So, well, that would be it. If there are no questions, we will finish the webinar here. And again, make sure you keep going through everything. And well, in terms of you, Katira, there's no problem because you are really up to date. So excellent. So any questions or anything, as usual, just contact me and we'll go through. Yeah.
Okay, Jordi.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you for attending, and we'll keep in touch. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.